For 100 years, the world celebrated medicine's greatest triumphs. We cured diseases, mapped our DNA, and watched science transform our lives. But behind those headlines, a much quieter story was unfolding. It was the story of governments and militaries racing to understand the deepest code of life before anyone else could turn it into a weapon. Beneath the applause for progress was an unspoken fear. What if someone learned to bend biology to their will before we knew how to defend against it? That fear pushed nations, especially the United States, into a new frontier where secrets weren't written in ink, but encoded in our very genes. To trace this hidden history, we have to go back to the tense, early years of the Cold War. Scientists had just unlocked the double helix structure of DNA, a discovery so profound it was like finding the blueprint for all existence. Almost immediately, military planners started imagining the nightmare scenarios. What if an enemy could engineer crops to fail, wiping out a food supply, or alter insects to spread new diseases, or mutate pathogens to resist every known treatment? Fort Detrick Americas, top-secret center for biological research, became the battleground for this invisible war. Inside its sealed labs and concrete bunkers, researchers weren't building weapons. Instead, they were driven by a terrifying question. What would happen if the other side struck first in a biological age no one was ready for? They studied how bacteria evolved, how viruses adapted, and how our own genetics could make us vulnerable or resistant. It was all about defense, about understanding what an enemy might attempt, so America could be prepared. But science waits for no one. As the decades passed, the field of biology accelerated faster than anyone had predicted. In the 1970s, the world was rocked by the arrival of gene splicing and recombinant DNA. Suddenly, biologists could mix and match genes from different species, swap traits between organisms, and build forms of life that nature had never seen. For the public, this promised groundbreaking new medicines and cures. But for defense agencies, it was a blaring warning siren. If we could use these tools to heal, an adversary could surely use them to harm. This was the moment biology and national security collided. Behind the scenes, military scientists quietly partnered with universities. Their goal was to develop early warning systems sensors that could detect genetically altered microbes in the air, or protective gear for troops entering unknown territory. This wasn't about creating super soldiers. It was about protecting them. But behind closed doors, a heavy debate was raging among ethicists and policymakers. How far should this research go? The United States publicly committed to a defensive-only posture. But to build a good defense, you have to understand every possible method of attack. Every breakthrough in biology sharpened the tension. Every new discovery opened a flood of new questions, and every unanswered question was a potential risk to national security. By the 2000s, the world had crossed into a new chapter. Reading a strand of DNA, which once took years, could now be done in hours. Entire genomes could be edited with startling precision. Then came CRISPR, a gene editing tool so powerful and easy to use it felt like something straight out of science fiction. At the same time, synthetic biology emerged, giving researchers the power to build brand new genetic code from scratch. This is when DARPA, the Pentagon's Advanced Research Agency, stepped into the spotlight with its new Biological Technologies Office. The programs it funded sounded like plot lines from futuristic thrillers, creating genetic tripwires that could alert systems to dangerous mutations, developing rapid response vaccines that could be deployed in days, not years, and exploring how our own genetics could make us more resilient under extreme stress. These weren't secret super soldier programs. They were real, documentable biodefense projects, designed to keep the nation safe in a world where technology was changing faster than policy could keep up. But the imagery surrounding this work glowing DNA models, scientists in hazmat suits, and government reports with entire lines blacked out, fueled the public imagination. What else could be done with this kind of power? What decisions were being made behind doors we never see? And how do you even begin to regulate a technology that can literally rewrite the code of life? The idea of genetic modification in a military context became a global fascination. This wasn't because of secret wrongdoing, but because biology itself had become so powerful, it was, frankly, terrifying. The same science that could save lives could also be misunderstood. Genetic modification could help us detect disease outbreaks faster, build vaccines in record time, and help first responders survive in extreme environments. But it also demanded treaties, oversight, and constant vigilance. More than 180 nations signed agreements banning biological weapons and restricting genetic manipulation for harmful purposes. International ethics boards were formed. Regulations were expanded. The United States built strict legal and ethical guardrails around its own genetic research. Yet, the public's unease never completely disappeared. Not because of what was happening, but because of what could happen if the world ever lost control of these incredible discoveries. Today, as labs across the globe explore gene therapy, designer crops, and synthetic microbes, those old questions are returning with a new sense of urgency. How do we protect society without stifling scientific progress? How do we prepare for genetic threats we can't even predict yet? And what happens when technology continues to evolve faster than our laws or our ethics? The real thriller isn't about hidden experiments in some desert bunker. It's about the frantic race between innovation and responsibility. Every advance in genetic science makes humanity stronger, safer, and healthier. But every advance also opens new doors, and we must decide, as a society, which ones we are willing to walk through. In the end, the secret history of genetic modification and national security isn't a story of forbidden science. It's a story about fear, foresight, and the fragile balance between discovery and danger. It's about the researchers who worked in sealed labs, not to build monsters, but to understand the monsters an enemy might one day create. It's about the policymakers who struggled to draw moral lines for a future that hadn't arrived yet. And most of all, it's about the future that is being built right now, inside laboratories where DNA can be edited, rewritten, and engineered. The true mystery is not what governments did in the past, but what tomorrow's breakthroughs will bring. Because in this new age, the greatest secrets are no longer locked away in vaults or hidden in classified files. They're written in the very code of life itself. Welcome to Hidden US. This is episode 33. Genetic Modification Projects, Military Secrets. Thank you for watching, and if you found this interesting, be sure to subscribe for more hidden histories.